We've got 7 different stories to cover from 7 different media outlets. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another premiere video of Regan's Newsround that drops every Saturday, almost every Saturday, at 8 p.m. UK time. Date and time of this recording is on the Thursday, the 28th of November at around 1:45 p.m. UK time, just for reference there. And on this video we cover 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, from The Guardian, Sky News, BBC, iNews, Independent, Open Democracy and Byline Times on these ones today. The 7 stories that we cover, and they will be timestamped at the end of the premiere video, so if you are watching this after it premieres, you can simply go to the timestamp to watch the specific news story that you want to read. The first one we're going to be covering will be used robots instead of hiring low-paid migrants, says the Shadow Home Secretary. That is from The Guardian. The next one we'll be listening to is Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire unlikely to last, says the former UK spy chief Richard Dearlove. The next one will be from the BBC of David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, playing down the criticisms of the Chagos Islands deal. We'll also be looking at a piece from iNews on electric vehicles targets to be watered down as Vauxhall shuts the Luton plant. We're also going to read into that. We'll also look at the Independence headline of Labour MPs calling for Islamophobia crackdown prompts a blasphemy law fears. That is from PMQs that occurred. We'll talk about that. And we'll also have a piece from Open Democracy about the BlackRock letters inside Labour's close partnership. A dark money investigation analysis from Open Democracy there. We will look at that. And then finally, we will look for a piece from Byline Times with the headline that fraud victims and whistleblowers expose how the financial watchdog was captured by big finance. Those are the 7 stories we covered today, and also in between we drop a funny video in between and one at the end of the premiere video as well. So if you want a bit of laughter while we go through this, you're more than welcome to see them as well. Excuse me. So let's get started. The first one is with The Guardian. So, use robots instead of hiring low-paid migrants, says the Shadow Home Secretary. The Tory MP Chris Phelps has called for more investment in technology to reduce UK's net migration figures. So what the Shadow Home Secretary is proposing here is obviously less reliant on workers and more reliance on robots. Now, from a business point of view, that's actually a very good thing in terms of a business point of view. It's not from a worker's point of view, but if you just put this from a business perspective, obviously that means that not having to hire workers and then relying on robots which you just need to basically maintain to be able to do the job that a worker can do, and you don't have to pay them a salary. As long as you are maintaining those robots and they're doing the job, then it's a good thing. However, the problem is that you're also taking away someone's job, an opportunity for someone to work. And not every low-paid job is in fact it can be done by robots. Some will do over time, but not every job can be. And there are obviously people who are not migrants, who are actually British citizens, who have British passports, who do work low-paid jobs. So are we just going to kick them to the curb? And as time passes on and more businesses and more use of more robots, which is will become an inevitable thing over the next several decades, because we will be relying more on robots to do things instead of us doing the work themselves. What becomes of us? What becomes of our wages? What becomes of our way of life? Because you can't not have some kind of source of income. If people can't work, then what are they supposed to do? And this is where the benefit system will come into play. But people don't want them on benefits. People want them working instead. And this is the problem with the Conservatives. The Conservatives here, you have Chris Phelps basically saying that we should be using robots instead of low-paid migrants. But at the same time, he's the same political party saying is that too many people are sitting on benefits, they should be working. Well, you know, you can't have robots taking over majority of jobs and also complaining about a large number of people sitting on benefits as well. You can't have it both ways. So there has to be a compromise of some sorts here. We know that robots will be coming down the line at some point. And this is where the talk about a universal basic income has been something that has been talked about. I'm not going to go into the details here, but what I will say is that what a universal basic income is basically a guaranteed amount of money that you would get from you would get from the government every month, a guaranteed amount of money. Everyone will be entitled to it. That's what a universal basic income, something that will keep you on your feet, sort of thing. And that will be inevitable if people can't work, or if the jobs that they used to do aren't available there anymore because they've been taken over by robots. They need to be compensated. Or if the opportunity is not there, then they need to be given the training to be able to find other jobs as well. So there's that you need to take into account as well. So let's read a bit more into this. So businesses should be using more robots instead of hiring low-paid migrants, the Shadow Home Secretary has said. The Conservative MP Chris Phelps said other countries use a lot more automation for tasks such as picking fruits and vegetables, rather than simply importing a low-wage migrant labour. Speaking on BBC Breakfast, he called for more investment in technology and reduce the UK's net migration figures. He said, to give an example, in Australia and New Zealand, they are rolling out robotic and automatic fruit and vegetable picking machines. In South Korea, they use 9 times the number of robots in manufacturing processes compared to us. In America, they use a lot more modular construction, which is much faster and much more efficient. There are a lot of things British industry can do to grow without needing to import large number of low-wage migrants. At an impromptu press conference on Wednesday, Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, said her party had got it wrong on immigration, and she promised a review of every policy, treaty and part of our legal framework, including the role in the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, and the Human Rights Act. Now, obviously, there is obviously a place for automation, but like I always said, like, not everyone is going to be a migrant. Not everyone on these low-paid jobs is, some of them are, like I said, is going to be Britain. So what do you do with them? Because people complain about people sitting on benefits. Well, if you're not going to put them on benefits, what are you going to do? You can't just shun them, basically. So if you're going to put everybody off, if you're going to put everyone on everybody on robots instead of human beings, what are you going to do with all these workers? That's the thing that people need to understand. She said that her party still believes in a deterrent to irregular migration, but did not commit to restoring the Rwanda scheme scrapped by Labour, even though Phelps called for it to be reinstated 2 weeks ago. He said on Thursday that Labour had cancelled the Rwanda scheme before it even started. Phelps was asked about reports under the Conservative ministers had been examining using a giant wave machine to deter Channel crossing. He told the BBC, "I don't recall ever having seriously looked at that idea. I can't remember if someone else did." Well, the problem is he did mention it. So, Badenoch committed to a strict and numerical cap on migration and said the Tories would explain how you get those numbers. Phelps declined to put a figure for this cap, but said that net migration figures of 350,000 would be much too high. He told the BBC that we need to do the work properly to understand exactly how many high-skilled, high-wage people we need. How many people are coming here to do proper degree courses, and not usually degree courses are a sort of parallel migration system, which has been happening to an extent so far. I'm not going to shoot from the hip. He said the Tories would examine migrants' eligibility for benefits among other areas. Well, I'm sure they will look at different areas when it comes to migration there. And I do think, that we will over time here, as well as you said, it is happening in other parts of the world already, where people are not using workers and they're now relying on robots to do their jobs for them. But there are still parts of the world, as we know, where there's no such thing as technology. Everything is all done manually. So while other countries continue to advance in terms of technology, we continue to ignore the most deprived, most poverty, war-torn countries in the world, not giving them a little bit of a helping hand so that they can move forward as well. I think that's really important to highlight. But as long as if there is not some kind of universal basic income for workers, or if there's not an alternative for workers in those jobs, then it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a massive problem for the UK. If we continue to push down the path towards automation, because that's clearly the direction we seem to be going here. That is for sure. Next story I have for you guys is from Sky News. This one is from with regards to the Middle East. So Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire is unlikely to last, says the former UK spy chief Richard Dearlove. So Richard was the head of MI6, known as C, between 1999 and 2004. He has also said the UK government needs to face up to the fact that Russia thinks it is in an actual war with the UK. Now, so there's a couple of things. So first and foremost, obviously, before we get into the whole Ukraine thing, let's talk a little bit about the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire. I did cover a separate video on Rumble with regards to this, but I'll give you guys some of my thoughts anyway. I do hope that the ceasefire holds, and I do hope that peace lasts, and then there's no more gunshots or firing, and innocent people are not dying on either side. Whether it's innocent people of Israel's who live in the north of the province, north of Israel, where they've been bombarded, or whether it's those in Lebanon who have been getting continuous airstrikes from Israeli airstrikes into Lebanon, wherever it may be in there. Obviously, the plan is obviously to reintroduce a resolution 1701, but we know that Hezbollah broke the promises of that. And many people from Israel, quite a few people from within Israel's cabinet, I've heard that they don't believe that this is good for Israel in the long term. They think that Israel will basically thinks that Hezbollah will break their promise and attack again. And a lot of general public, there is some consensus that some of the general public feel that as well. They feel that there's no point going back up there because they think that they'll strike again. We don't know that. I just want it to last. For me, the most important thing is stopping people dying, preventing the loss of life. Innocent people involved in all of this. Wars are not good for anyone. That is one thing for sure. But we have to remember also that not only is there the history here between Lebanon, Israel, Hezbollah, but we also have to remember that one of the reasons why they ramped it up so much more was because of what was happening since October the 7th with regards to Hamas's terrible attack on Israel, and Israel's response to Gaza as a result of it as well, which is what led to the complete and total wipeout of Gaza, because it literally has been wiped out, and they're trying to basically kill off the population, allegedly. So, do I think this ceasefire is going to hold? I generally hope it does, but at the same time, considering that Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, as well as some other factions, all working with Iran, the Revolutionary Guard, known as the Axis of Resistance, I don't think they're just going to sit by forever, but what they'll probably likely do is regroup. That's what I likely think they're going to do now that the guns have for now stopped. So the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah is unlikely to last in the long term, according to a former British spy chief. Sir Richard Dearlove, who ran MI6 between 1999 and 2004, explained his concerns with the recently announced deal in an interview with Politics Hub of Sophie Ridge. As well as the situation in the Middle East, Sir Richard told Sophie that Europe is in a war situation with Russia rather than a pre-war one, and that he believes that a deal to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius will collapse. The ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah came into force in the early hours of the morning on Wednesday local time. Since it began, the people have been streaming back into southern regions of Lebanon as Israel began to withdraw its forces. Sir Richard said the deal is a retracted I can't say that word, guys. Rereaded agreement from 2006, which was meant to help Hezbollah separate from Israel's northern border with Lebanon. This was supposed to be moderated by the UN and the Lebanese army, but over time they did absolutely nothing, he added. Instead, the former intelligence chief said the ceasefire suits both sides for the time being, as Israel has pushed Hezbollah away from the northern Gaza, at least in the short to medium term. He added the Israelis must know how much of the infrastructure Hezbollah they've taken down. I mean, they haven't taken it down completely, but the Lebanese state cannot reassess some of its authority as the government of Lebanon to keep Hezbollah to an extent under control. We just have to wait and see what happens. So Richard went on to tell Sophie that the conflict has left Iran, which backs Hezbollah, more exposed as layers of its anti-Israeli proxies have been removed. This could lead to more direct confrontational situation if Iran were to launch another attack on Israel. I think it's an actual war. On the Ukraine war, Sir Richard said the UK government needs to face up to the fact that the Russians think they're in a state of war with us. The former top Spock said the situation is an actual war. He said we have to face up to the fact that the Russians think that we're in a state of war with us. Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, has referred to it as a pre-war situation. I think he's wrong. I think it's an actual war. I don't think it's an actual war because while we are supplying weapons and equipment and whatnot to Ukraine, we are not have direct soldiers in Russia, and we haven't directly targeted inside Russia itself. Now, I think if we did that, then we could say that. But obviously he has a better understanding than I do. But my premise is that we are not at war with Russia. We are involved in this proxy war, supporting Ukraine in this war against Russia. But we are not directly in war with Russia. I think is the term I would prefer to use. But some will disagree, of course. Now, that doesn't mean that in the Russian mind a military conflict, but it means the hybrid conflict of different types of conflicts in different areas of interest. So Richard said he's always believed that it's important to have a dialogue with one opponents or enemies, saying it is especially key during a contained conflict in Europe, which has the potential to spill over. On the Chagos Islands, which the UK has agreed to hand over to Mauritius, the ex-MI6 chief believes it won't go through. So Richard told Marco Rubio that Donald Trump's nominations for the Secretary of State, the US Foreign Minister, believes Mauritius is too close diplomatically to China. I mean, I very much hope that Rubio and Trump shoot this agreement down. I mean, the Chagos Islands are strategically really important, he says. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think, like, in the deal, they still will have the base for like 100 years or something before it runs out. This is what was agreed. But it looks like people are trying to undermine this. It's entirely possible that the Trump administration could shut it down. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But just on some of the other things, like I said, I hope the ceasefire does persist. Obviously, with regards to the conflict in Ukraine, you know, they are struggling. They are struggling manpower, weapon-wise, everything. They have been getting pushed and pushed and pushed. They've not been doing well at all, Ukraine. They can't counterattack because they just don't have the bodies to do so. So they are really suffering. They have lost quite a lot of territory this year, gained quite some really good ground for Russia, but they've also sacrificed a lot of lives. Many Russian soldiers have died with the tactics that they use. So there's been many Russians who have lost their lives by what's happening there. I generally do hope that something can be sorted soon, because it looks like Trump is going to be determined to end the war in Ukraine, but we'll have to wait and see what he offers. I imagine the idea is that they stop with the borders they are and agree to a ceasefire. That's what I believe that might be Trump's intention. We honestly don't know, because he's an absolute madman. We don't know sure which side he's really going to swing, really, when it comes to that. But some interesting thoughts there from Richard Dearlove, as a former UK spy chief, that is for sure, guys. The next story I've got for you guys is one we were just briefly touching on, and that's on the Chagos Islands here. This one from the BBC. So the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, plays down the criticism of the Chagos Islands deal. The UK Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, has played down the criticism from the new Mauritian Prime Minister and the incoming Trump administration of a deal to cease control of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Now, we have to remember that for all the arguments and consensus that people are trying to make about whether it's a strategic position or it belongs under the crown or whatever, let's be very, very clear here. These lands, these islands, do not belong to the UK. They do not belong to the US. They belong to its people. We took the islands from them. We kicked the people off the islands and put our own people on there. We've not had these lands like for centuries or anything like that. They're not ours. They're not ours. You know, just try to play this position of some sorts that we should give. Sorry, apologies. That we should keep these because I'll keep them under the crown of some sort. It's nonsense, guys. And as far as this whole strategy sort of thing, like in the deal, like the US base is going to be there for at least 100 years. At least 100 years. So they have that. And I just think, we're just thinking, we're worrying too much about all this. I really, really do. And a lot can happen in 100 years as well. So I just think it's an attempt by the right wing to kind of undermine the Labour government more than anything, because it was the Conservatives that started this deal in the first place. And also, there was pressure, obviously, on the international community to push the UK to do so as well. So the UK Foreign Secretary, David Lammy... I read that bit already, sorry. So under the agreement, which is still to be signed, the UK would relinquish sovereignty over the Alaperco, but maintain a 99-year lease over Diego Garcia, home to a major UK-US military airbase. The Prime Minister, Nagariska Ramagum, if I mispronounced the name, I apologise, elected 2 weeks ago, has voiced severe doubts over the agreement. The Reform UK leader and Trump ally Nigel Farage told BBC Newsnight it would damage the Keir Starmer's relation with the US President-elect. The deal is still subject to the finalisation of a treaty, so it's not done and dusted, guys. Lammy told the Foreign Commons Office Affairs Committee that it was a good deal and that he had addressed US concerns about the future of the military base on Diego Garcia. I'm very, very confident that this is a deal that the Mauritians will see in a cross-party sense as a good deal for them, Lammy said. When McGowan expressed doubts over the agreement after meeting Jonathan Powell, the UK's National Security Advisor, on Monday. Marco Rubio, Trump's pick for Secretary of State, said in October that the deal posed a serious threat to US national security by giving the islands to a country allied with China. Lammy said, "This is politically sad. I know I'm sad, but there has been so much politicking about this." He said the agreement was a very good deal for our national security because it secured the legal basis of the Diego Garcia military base. I'm really assured about that, and I think an incoming US administration will be reassured about that, and I think that the Mauritians still sure about that, despite politicking that we all know goes on, Lammy has added. Speaking to BBC Newsnight, Farage said the incoming Trump government was horrified by the prospect of the deal the UK government had struck because we know China have extraordinary naval ambitions. If the treaty were signed, he added, it would be a terrible mistake. We would be very badly damage our relationship, not just with Donald Trump, but with America as a whole, and making it getting any deal on tariffs much, much harder. I don't buy this. I call this fear mongering. It's just attempts of fear mongering. A lot of this. Yes, the Trump administration doesn't approve of it. I really do think that Biden, Keir Starmer, they need to push this through before Trump comes in. If they want to get it done and dusted, they need to do it before he comes in. Newsnight political editor Nicholas Walsh said he has spoken to a government minister at the heart of the deal who rejected claims that there were doubts over the agreement. This deal is fine. We are complying with international law, the minister had told him. And during the agreement, in the context of the current global tensions, Times columnist Matthew Syed told Newsnight, I think we're moving closer potentially to a major war between the big powers. We have a proxy wars happening in Europe and the Middle East, and there could be a blockade by China on Taiwan. Military leaders say this is a strategically absolutely crucial part of the world, and China's leading an ever more cohesive axis, including Iran, Russia, and North Korea. Europe, he argued, has been free riding on US defense policy. We have to be realistic that in our context with our deluded defense capacity, it is absolutely critical that we stand with America. Details of the treaty's legal text is still being worked out and is expected to go before Parliament for scrutiny next year. So this is Diego Garcia here. You can see actually, if you look at it closely, you can actually see the airport there. You can see where the airport, or where the airstrip is there, where planes land. But it doesn't look like much island, much there at all. But yeah, obviously this island here would be still controlled by the UK and US, the US military base that's on there for at least 100 years. So this would not go back to its people for at least 100 years. So after 100 years, and obviously then they would have to deal with it. But, you know, a problem that they would need to kick down the road, that is for sure. So, and this idea that, you're giving away territory or a strategic position, that's not it. That's not it. They're giving back lands. The other islands, they have no use of. They have no use to the other islands. What's use to the other islands? Give it back to the people who it belongs to. Makes logical sense. We don't need it. They're not ours. We've already had this discussion. Joe Biden, the president currently, needs to get it signed. Needs to get it dealed and get it put through before Trump administration comes in. Because once it's put through, then there's nothing that Trump can do. They have to sit there and leave it for another 100 years. And it's not going to be his problem. It's not going to be any of our problem. It's going to be the next generation's problem after 100 years. In that time frame, obviously they would have to give the island back. That what it would be under the treaty. They would have to give it back. At the end of the day, it doesn't belong to China. It doesn't belong to China. And if they want, I know some people would say it won't like this, but if they allow China to build a base there, that's their decision. We weren't given a choice to build them, given the US a choice to build a military base. They literally came in and took that, and the UK took the lands, kicked all the people off for their own well-being. How has this been beneficial? We're worried about strategic locations. It's a silly thing, if I'm honest. It's a story just used just to wind up people. It really, really is. Like I said, yeah, we still have it for 100 years, the UK and US. So really. The next story is a very concerning one here, guys, and this is from iNews. This is about the electric vehicle targets to be watered down as Vauxhall shuts a Luton plant. So the business secretary launches consultation to reforming the rules in response to concerns from the automotive sector. So we know that the automotive sector has been suffering since Brexit. They were always going to suffer. Their industry was always going to get smaller. It was inevitable. Because obviously we don't have the same getting the weapons, but getting the parts that they need to build the cars. It was always going to be difficult for them, and this has actually been something. So I've watched one or two videos and read some responses on this. This is something that's always been coming, even if whatever the government was going to do, whatever this Labour government was going to do, it was always coming. But this idea that people don't mention Brexit, or they try to say that it's by other means, is nonsense. Brexit is a huge factor in this decision, that is for sure. My hope is that obviously those who jobs are at risk now, and I generally do worry about the well-being of the workers here. If it does come to it, I just hope that they are given alternative jobs to go to, rather than just literally given their pay package and let go. I really hope that they are given alternative work, whether it is more, whether it's the same pay or less pay. I don't like hearing about it shutting down, and especially electric vehicle as well. We're supposed to be producing more electric vehicle, but we know that China are leading the world when it comes to electric cars at the moment. But we don't have as much influence, and we're certainly nowhere near on the same level as China or even our European counterparts, because guess what? It's much harder for us to get the means that we need, the bits that we need to make the cars and the vans as well. And it also comes down to another thing as well, and that is money, finances. If a business is not making money, if a business is at a loss, why keep that business? So that's another problem as well. So ministers are poised to water down rules around electric vehicle manufacturing, that's EV, amid growing concerns within the sector that the current plans could scatter the sector. Car makers have been warning the government that the current rules have set EV VAT sales targets too high, which is putting jobs at risk, and have called for changes to the current mandate. It comes as Stellantis, the owner of Vauxhall, announced it would be closing its Luton plant just months after it announced the site would start processing its new fleet of electric vans. Stellantis said the UK's challenging EV quota system played a significant part in its decision, the Financial Times have reported. On Tuesday evening, the Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds used a speech at the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders dinners to launch a new consultation into reforming the rules in response to concerns from the sector. He said, "The Transport Secretary and I have heard you loud and clear on the need for support to make this transition a success, and that's why we will be consulting with you on changes to the said mandate and inviting your views on the options for a better way forward." He said, "We know that you need certainty, and that's why we will fast-track that consultation, give you clarity on the direction of travel, and ensuring that you have the answers you need in the coming weeks before you make a decision in January." And I know that any message many of you here tonight, but I also want to make unequivocally clear that this is not about undermining or doubting the transition itself. He said the automotive industry is facing a greater set of challenges in 50 years, and he is profoundly concerned about the way zero-emission politics currently operate. He said, "I'm going to be frank with you. I don't believe the politics that we have inherited, I mean specifically in relation to zero-emission vehicles, are operating today in the way anyone intended them to. In fact, I'm profoundly concerned about how that is working at the moment. New flexibilities are expected to be looked into reducing the financial penalties applied to companies that are unable to meet the new targets. So car makers have said that to avoid fines, they are being forced to discount new vehicles substantially or subsidize rival companies, such as Tesla and the Chinese firm BYD, which only build electric vehicles." During an appearance in front of the Business Trade Committee on Tuesday afternoon, Reynolds acknowledged particular concerns of van manufacturers as part of a shift to electric vehicles, and he insisted he and the Transport Secretary Louise Haigh get the seriousness of the urgency of the situation. He told MPs different OEMs, that's original equipment manufacturers, have different particular issues, particularly if they are both a van and passenger vehicle manufacturing. I think everyone agrees on the destination, but at the minute it's the way, in a way which doesn't in any way challenge how many EVs there will actually be on the road. We have to accept that we have to analyse whether the environment in the UK for all the motor manufacturing is one, and that is going to get us to the destination in a way that just keeps those jobs industries in the UK. I'm just going to read the current quota here. So under the current mandate, at least 22% of new cars sold by each manufacturer in the UK this year must be zero emission, which generally means pure electric. The threshold is due to rise annually with the government's commitment to bringing the ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel car and vans forward from 2035 to 2030. Failure to abide by the rules or make use of flexibility, such as buying credits from rival companies or making more sales in the future years, will result in a requirement to pay the government £15,000 per polluting car sold above the limits. Manufacturers have insisted that demands for EVs have not met the levels of expectations, and the rules were originally drawn up. And this is the biggest issue that I have. One of the biggest problems is incentivizing people to switch from their motor cars to electric ones. That's the biggest challenge I feel. And the reason why it's so difficult is because people aren't being incentivized for it. A relative of mine who has electric cars, what he normally does, he doesn't buy a car outright. He gets one of those leases for a while, and then he one of those deals where he can has it for a couple of years, and if he wants to buy outright, he can do, or return it and lease another car or some sorts. And that's what he normally does, rather than buy it outright, because it's still too expensive for him. The cost is not worth it to him. But everybody's situation is different, obviously. They need to be cheaper than petrol and gas cars. There needs to be the charging points for them as well. Another criticism that I've heard a lot as well is that a lot of charging points are not working, or some of them aren't the same compatible ones as every single electric car is not the same plug-in as well. That's the problem. Every single electric car should be having the same plug-in. Universal, in my opinion. So you don't have this issue, because then you can't take that electric vehicle outside of the UK if it's going to be a different one. So there are lots and lots of problems with when it comes to EVs. He added that the industrial policy that Labour government has inherited is incentivising imports over domestic production. And I don't think that is any kind of special pledging from the industry, because we've seen the scale of what is happening, Reynolds said, adding that Stellantis is part of that. Excuse me. Vauxhall owner Stellantis announced that he's planning to shut down the Luton site next April and putting more than 1,100 jobs in the van-making factory at risk. Stellantis said it is hopeful to transfer hundreds of jobs to the group's Vauxhall site at Ellesmere Port. It is now in consultation with unions and employees over the proposals, which will also see it invest $50 million in the Ellesmere Port factory. The decision represents a significant U-turn by the company, which had announced earlier this year that it would begin building extra electric vans from its Luton site from the start of 2025. Yeah, so from their perspective, that it's not worth it from them, from a market money-making point of view. Stellantis said it will work with local government and local employees to identify new employment opportunities within the Luton area for Stellantis employees who might be impacted by the proposal if it goes ahead. The government spokesperson said, while it's encouraging to see Stellantis investing in the future of its Ellesmere Port plan, we know this will be a concerning time for the families and employees at Luton who may be affected. We have a long-standing partnership with Stellantis and we will continue to work closely with them, as well as trade unions and local partners, on the next steps of their proposals. Last year, Stellantis warned of significant job losses in the UK if the Brexit deal was not renegotiated. It is the fourth largest car maker in the world, employing more than 5,000 people in the UK, with its other brands including Citroën, Peugeot, Fiat, Alfa Romeo and Chrysler. In 2021, it's committed to making electric vehicles at its Ellesmere Port and Luton plants. The spokesperson for Unite said the proposal that has been tabled today has been a complete slap in the face of our members in Luton, where Vauxhall vehicles have been manufactured for 150 years. Whatever the possible positive benefits this plan may have for the Ellesmere Port, that is not acceptable. We stand ready to support our members in doing whatever we can to ensure that historical vehicle manufacturing is maintained in Luton, and we call on the government to do the same. I mean, obviously, my hope is that they don't close the factory, and instead, if it means redundancies and they keep it going, then great. Because I would rather there be redundancies, and rather than redundancies in reduce it so that they're actually still able to run the factory rather than actually closing it down outright, which will put more people out of work. And when you think about a place like Luton, you know, you want those kind of jobs there. For some people, that has been passed on. For some people have worked in that industry, probably going from father to son as well, because it's been there, you know, over 1,000 employees there, and it's been there for over 120 years. So there are people who know it inside and out. But we also know that the industry has been suffering greatly since Brexit. And as it just said, we just highlighted in that piece, the Brexit deal, which has not been negotiated, it's not been in the interest of manufacturing. But people knew that the manufacturing industry was going to suffer as a direct result of us leaving the European Union as well. And that is the situation we're currently in. So we'll have to see how Labour respond to this situation, guys. So, guys, we're going to take a little break here from all this. I'm going to have I'll play a little funny video, guys, to break the ice, as you say sometimes here as well. This funny video I've got for you guys is from Broken News. It's an old one, but some of you guys may have heard this one before. From Larry and Paul, it is Keir Starmer targeting those greedy pensioners. Hope you guys enjoy.
Welcome to Broken News. The UK government says it's committed to fixing the economy by going after those with what they call the broadest shoulders. They've begun by focusing on old people who are living lavish lifestyles on sometimes as much as £11,500 a year. Our reporter has more.
The central claim of Labour's election campaign was that they wouldn't hit working people with tax rises. But clearly, that slogan allows room for taking money off old codgers who've already done a lifetime's work. And while many UK pensioners have traditionally voted Conservative, pundits say the PM's plan is a novel way to kill them all off. It's clever stuff. Sir Keir Starmer says he's not afraid to take the difficult decisions. And nabbing 300 quid off old Granny Ethel in West Bromwich is definitely more difficult than making big fat Russian non-doms pay their fair share. In fact, the PM says, for example, forcing Amazon to pay their tax is actually too easy, and that's why he can't be bothered to do it. The Prime Minister, who still insists on calling Rishi Sunak the Prime Minister, has been urged to make a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance, but has rejected accusations from other Labour MPs that he's behaving like a Tory. In an email seen by Broken News, he told them, U-turn if you want to. The lady is... Sorry, I mean, me is not for... I'm not for turning. I mean, I'm not going to change my mind. In a public statement, the PM said, "We've always said those with the broadest shoulders should bear the biggest burden, and many pensioners have quite broad shoulders because of the thick, warm blankets they're forced to put around their icy, withered necks." In response, the Conservatives have very suddenly become extremely worried about the welfare of the working classes and say they're standing squarely behind the poorest in society, which in fairness is exactly what they would have done at the Somme. Back to you.
What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
Much appreciated from Larry and Paul there. Guys, do check out Larry and Paul's YouTube channel. Link for the video is in the description. Make sure you like, share, and watch it from their perspective. Leave some comments down below if you like their stuff as well. They do really, really great content. Looking forward to whatever next video they have coming as well. And do follow them across their social medias as well if you can do as well. Wonderful, wonderful stuff there. Guys, just before I go to the next article, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated, and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Being a YouTube member gives you access to custom emojis that are available exclusively here that you can use on premiere videos or live streams. You can also get access to membership community tabs as well. And whenever you comment on my videos as a YouTube member, you will always get a response. Sometimes it takes a couple of days for me to respond, but you get all those perks. And of course, if you're ever there on the live streams, of course, I always give you a nod because you are a paid member. It's much appreciated. If you decide to become a $1.99 member, that's leveling up on the top tier level. You also get early access for additional content. So content that I normally upload and produce, that becomes available as soon as it's on YouTube. It's uploaded to YouTube. It becomes available to you before other people do when it comes out when normally videos come out at the normal scheduled time, whether it's short videos or long videos format there. Other ways you can financially support me is by buying me a coffee. Link for that is in the description, and also joining the Patreon. Link for all of those are down in the description below. Thank you to anyone and everyone who's done any of those things. Like I said, if you can't support me in a non-financial way, that's totally fine too. But just hitting the like button, sharing, and leaving your comments down below, all that stuff really does support the channel. And thank you to everyone and anyone who has done so. It is greatly appreciated. The next story I've got for you guys is one that was back from Prime Minister's Questions here from The Independent. Labour MPs are calling for Islamophobia crackdown prompts a blasphemy law fears. In exchange during Prime Minister's Questions have provoked a row over the government's comments on to freedom of speech. So this is obviously about protecting Muslims, protecting people of all cultures, of all religious backgrounds, and protecting them from any kind of laws just based on who they are and whatnot. And Islamophobia has been continuously on the rise. We know it's been on the rise. And it really got even higher when the incident back in October the 7th in the Middle East, obviously, is what caused everything to kick off last year. And it's really, really important that we educate and that we teach people that there's no place for Islamophobia. There is no place for vile hatred. There's no place for discrimination of any kind of treating people. And it's really important that we teach that from an educational point of view, from children up. And we also make sure that those who do it not only face the full wrath of the law, but also educate to understand that it is wrong to treat people indifferently simply because of their religious beliefs or their colour of their skin. Just as examples there. Everyone should be treated the same and given a fair balance, fair opportunities and whatnot in life. So I hope that Labour can crack down on this, but we know that they have a lot on their plate, Labour, that is for sure. So let's read a bit into this, guys. So a Labour MP called for a new law to tackle Islamophobia has provoked concerns about Sir Keir Starmer's commitment to freedom of speech. So Birmingham's Hall Green and Moseley MP Talal Ali raised the issue of hate crime against Muslims as part of Islamophobia Awareness Month in November. He went on that last year the United Nations Human Rights Council adopted a resolution condemning the desecration of religious texts, including the Quran, despite opposition from the previous government. Acts of such mindless discretion only serve to fuel division and hatred within our society. Will the Prime Minister commit to introducing the measures to prohibit the desecration of all religious texts and the prophet of the Abrahamic religions, he was asked. The MP later tweeted, as November marks Islamophobia Awareness Month, it is vital that the government makes clear and measurable steps to prevent acts that fuel hatred in society. The problem of Islamophobia has been a growing issue in the UK and appears to have been exacerbated by the Israel-Gaza war. In the year following Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel, the charity Tell Mama UK has recorded 4,971 incidents in anti-Muslim hate, the highest annual total in 14 years. And that's, by the way, and you always have to take in perspective, right? That's ones that are recorded. How many do you think have not been recorded? How many do you actually think that how often do you actually think that people always go out and report it? Some people don't. Some people get it and they just don't report it at all. So to say that I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's much more than that. My apologies. I never had the camera on. Mr. Ali questions raised concerns that he was calling for a blasphemy law, but Sir Keir did not reject the proposals in his answer while not committing himself to any specific action. I know, yeah, I wasn't there in the camera, but as long as you heard what I was saying, that I'm sure it's fine, guys. It's not the end of the world when you can't see me. He replied that I agree that desecration is lawful, is awful, and should be condemned across the House. And we are, as I said before, committed to tackling all forms of hatred and division, including Islamophobia, in all forms. Tory veteran MP Sir David Davis, a long-standing campaigner for civil rights who once resigned his seat in protest over government authorisation during Tony Blair's government, expressed his disappointment at the Prime Minister's response. He posted on X, formerly Twitter, "For centuries, one of the most important features of British freedom of speech is the absolute right to criticise religion. Freedom of speech is a fundamental to everything that we have and everything we stand for. I regret the Prime Minister did not make that clear to Mr Ali at PMQs." Journalist and former peer Matt Rowley described it as a black day. He said, "A true black moment for Britain is to hear a Prime Minister effectively endorse the idea that we should reintroduce blasphemy laws." The thing is like, I'm going to put this out there, right? We know for sure that the Keir Starmer and his cabinet are behind supporting Israel. We know that. We know they're behind supporting Israel and standing by Israel. We know that they are very keen not to do anything to attack Israel. We're very keen to keep a relationship there, to keep a line open there. Even though that myself personally, and some members of my chat will agree with me that more needs to be done, that we should not be supplying weapons and arms to Israel. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna sit on the fence on this one, in this one in particular, in saying that when he prompting blasphemy laws for this, I'm not so sure about that. I'm gonna let you guys decide in the chat whether you agree with that or not. I don't think that is. I don't think he's someone that would want that. But obviously, when it comes to Israel, he's not helping himself by not openly criticizing Israel, because Labour are very careful not to criticize Israel, which they should do, by the way, because I've criticized Israel a number of times, but we know they're doing it for political reasons, not for the moral reasons, which why the majority of people are upset and angry with this government on its position. And the fact that we still supply some weapons and arms, F-35s and whatnot, to Israel is ridiculous. And Keir Starmer tries to argue that it's to protect Israeli airspace, when we know that it's not always the case, that it's always for Israeli airspace, guys. Yeah, it's a difficult one for me, because I don't agree with this premise that he's prompting blasphemy laws, but at the same time, we know that he's not calling out enough of what he's not calling out basically enough of what Israel are doing, and he doesn't call out Israel. We know that he doesn't call out Israel. Guys, the next story I've got for you is a very interesting one here from Open Democracy, a very interesting analysis piece here from them. So the headline is "The BlackRock Letters Inside Labour's Close Partnership." So Jonathan Reynolds told the investment bank that he looked forward to working together to change the face of our UK. So this is a picture of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves hosting an investment roundtable discussion with BlackRock CEO Larry Fink and members of the BlackRock executive board at 10 Downing Street here. This is the picture here. Now, before people call Labour traitors or whatever, I want to put this out there, and this is really, really important for people to understand. You do not mess with BlackRock. They have more power and influence than you can possibly know. They have literally stock and shares in literally almost everything. They have their hands in literally everything, in multiple governments. They are one of the most powerful organizations. They are not just a bank. They're one of the most powerful organizations on the planet. And you do not want to upset BlackRock. You will want to keep them happy. And I know some people don't like that idea, but if the UK government wants to be able to do its job and try to help people, they need to keep basically companies like these happy. And again, I know how people feel about BlackRock, because we know that they have a lot of influence in the world. But rather than trying to fight BlackRock, which is near to next impossible, it's better to try and work with them. But I don't like it I don't like this any way, shape or form, but I also understand why they are doing it as well. Make no mistake about it. It's really, and by the way, it's not that hard to look it up as well. Like, you can literally Google bunch of so many things. Like, literally Google anything that's on the stock market and have a look at shares that they have, and you will always find in almost every profit making business, every big business, you will find a small percentage owned by BlackRock. It's really not that hard to look it up. I remember one time watching a video who showed this to me, and I was blown away initially about how much power BlackRock really has. It's incredible and dangerous as well. So, senior executives from BlackRock, one of the world's most controversial companies, last week sat down with opposite Keir Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves in Downing Street. The government's laser focus on private investment as the key means of driving economic growth has inevitably led to the reliance on the world's big money machines such as BlackRock. But this is a relationship that Labour initially developed in opposition, and which has only become cosier since the party entered government. The meeting on Thursday between Starmer, Reeves, Investment Minister Poppy Gullerscombe, and several members of BlackRock's board was not the first time that senior figures from the world's largest asset managers have met with ministers in recent months. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink also made a star turn at Labour's investment summit in October and posed for pictures with the Prime Minister when he visited New York in September. Senior BlackRock figures also attended a summer reception for business leaders at Number 10, as Open Democracy revealed previously. As Starmer cabinet ministers were appointed in July, hundreds of companies contacted them to offer their congratulations, pitch their values to the government, and request meetings. Inevitably, some had more success than others in obtaining access to their targets. BlackRock was one of them. With around 10 trillion, under its management, BlackRock is among the most powerful financial institutes on the planet. To many, it is almost the most evil because it continues to pump billions into fossil fuels and arms companies, and its reach extends into almost every aspect of the economy and society. At 5 p.m. on Monday, the 8th of July, a managing director at the investment giant emailed Jonathan Reynolds, who had been appointed the new UK Secretary of State of Business and Trade just a few days earlier. Dear Secretary of State, the executive wrote, on behalf of all of the CEO of BlackRock, please find the attached a formal letter of congratulations for myself and the UK Chair, Starmer, for your boss. May I add on a personal note, it's a pleasure after all these years to address you as such. The BlackRock executive was Anthony Manchester, a former senior civil servant who held roles from across various government departments between 2001 and 2015, including the Treasury and the Cabinet Office. The attached letter began with the same pleasantries and congratulations expressed by Manchester, before highlighting BlackRock's broad range of clinics and the scale of their footprint across the breadth of the UK economic, name-dropping British Airways, Rolls-Royce and AstraZeneca as investments. Then came the key point. As you know, we also share the government's view that infrastructure investment can play a critical role in improving economic growth and productivity, and we believe infrastructure is poised to become one of the fastest growing segments in private markets globally. As our chairman and CEO Larry Fink has recently written, private capital market in financing combined with policy pragmatism are necessary to meet countries' infrastructure needs and thereby enhance economic growth and productivity. We welcome the opportunity to meet with you to discuss our work on funding the projects and enterprises that drive the economy and building the UK's case in an investment destination. We will work with your team to get this meeting in the diary. Until then, congratulations once again on your appointment. This has been happening they've had this relationship for a while, Labour. Cutting through the corporate glaze, we can roughly understand the point being made here. In effort, BlackRock is highlighting that Labour's entire political project rests on the willingness of companies like BlackRock to plough private capital into foundational components of our society and extracting massive profits in the process. Because this is what it's all about to them. Money. You know, with considering that they own over $1 trillion. And that is what it's all about at the end of the day to them. No, I'm going to take that back. It's not all what it matters to them at the end of the day. About power, influence, money. And they have a lot of all of that. They have a lot of all of that. They are very dangerous. Reynolds replied to BlackRock when it eventually came in August, a gush with praise for the firm and the wider financial service sector. Partnership with the financial service sector will be critical to developing and delivering on our industrial strategy and supporting small business. The sector underpins UK investment and trade, and its continued success is critical to laying the strong foundations for economic growth that this country needs. He added, I would like to thank you for your long-standing investment in the UK and partnership in driving growth, job and innovation. BlackRock has expressed reach driving investment into the UK across sectors of our economy, and your work is vital to economic growth. Funding our priority projects and investment in infrastructure is an important part of this. We do not underestimate the importance of the UK financial service sector to the wider economy or its potential to help deliver social value and the clean energy transition. To succeed, we need everyone to play their part, and I'm looking forward to working with you in this common endeavour of national renewal. Together, we will change the face of the United Kingdom for the better. He says, I thank you for your kind offer to me, and I'll be delighted to accept this invitation. My private officer will be in touch with you to arrange a suitable time. Thank you once again for writing. I look forward to working with you again. Getting BlackRock to rebuild Britain. But it won't be in Britain's image, it'll be in what their image will be. In the asset management space, BlackRock has historically been a fairly hands-off investor. The bulk of its holdings have been significant, but typically not controlling shares for many of the world's biggest companies. Generally, between 5 to 10%, according to Christopher Baylor's survey of the industry, are lives in their portfolios why asset managers rule the world. Think of an industry, then think of a top company within it, and then there's a fairly good chance that BlackRock has shares in it. What did I literally just say? Christopher notes that as a proportion of its overall holdings, investments placed in infrastructure, things like the electricity grid, water system, and toll roads were relatively small. But in January this year, the firm announced it would purchase Global Infrastructure Partners, which controls around $170 billion worth of asset worldwide, including Gatwick Airport and Hornsea 1, a project to build the world's largest offshore wind farm in the North Sea. The purchase, which was completed last month, reportedly made BlackRock the second largest asset manager in the infrastructure space, after the vampire kangaroo Macquarie. Critics will argue when the asset managers own significant chunks of the infrastructure, their priority is their investors, including sovereign wealth funds and pension funds, rather than society or even the planet. The primary purpose of infrastructure, the argument goes, which becomes the generation of profit, rather than providing a working, reliable service. In practice, this might mean cutting investment while raising prices. BlackRock and its ilk buying up UK infrastructure would be controversial enough, but the way in which Labour is seeking to encourage this process is even worse. Writing in The Guardian ahead of the general election, economics Daniela Gaber said Labour's plans for getting back into government amounted to get BlackRock to rebuild Britain. Didn't I just say that? She wrote, Labour's strategy raises a bigger set of questions about the type of state we want. Starmer's vision for governing by BlackRock reduces the question of state capacity to how do I get BlackRock to invest in infrastructure assets. This model involves the state of effective subsidies in the privatisation of everyday life. In simple terms, the government plans to use the public funds to de-risk private investment means that the taxpayer takes on much of the risk involved, while the private sector stands to reap most of the benefits. This is particularly true of essential infrastructure, which the government cannot let fail, so it must step in to cover losses in the event of something goes wrong. And that's where we cough up at the end of the day. Gable continues, this doesn't only make it harder to bring public goods back into public ownership, it also allows big finance to tighten its grip on the social contract with citizens and to become the ultimate arbitrator of climate, energy and welfare politics, which will profound distributional, structural and political consequences. Immediately after the Downing Street meeting yesterday, Starmer took to social media to triumph his sit-down with BlackRock. His messages echo tone and substance of BlackRock's letter to Reynolds months prior. He wrote that the government's mission to deliver growth, create wealth and put more money into people's pockets can only be achieved by working in close partnership with businesses and investors. The Prime Minister continued, BlackRock has a big footprint in the UK and supports thousands of jobs across the country. Their insight in how we can put the UK on the world stage as a top investment destination and turbocharge growth is invaluable. Delighted to welcome them to Downing Street today to continue my government's partnership with leading business. Exactly which people's pockets are about to be filled with more money remains unclear. Yeah, something tells me they're going to make they could have their hands in things that we don't want them to have their hands in, guys. I'm very, very concerned about that. Unfortunately, at the same time, like I said, BlackRock, you do not want to be taking them on as well. I know some people will say, who cares what they have to say? Well, I would take what they say seriously. I don't like that that Labour are this cozying up to BlackRock. Like I would have been happy if it was like a relationship was there, but nothing too close. But obviously, having this massive meeting in Downing Street and what you've read into this, analysis of the dark piece there, there are certain things we want to keep out of private companies' hands. And believe me, BlackRock will do everything they can to milk Britain for as much as it can, while also remaining keeping its assets pretty close. But yeah, they have a foothold in the UK like they do in all parts of the world. It's going to be interesting times, is what I'm going to say. Like I say, it's going to be more. If Britain does prosper, BlackRock will prosper as well. That is for sure. Will prosper a lot more than we do. That is for sure. This last piece I've got for you guys here is from Byline Times. Sorry, I just got something in my eye. Apologies. Something annoying me there. It's actually not too far off, basically, some of the things we were just literally talking about in the last article here. So, fraud victims and whistleblowers expose how the financial watchdog was captured by big finance. So, a damning report accuses the city regulator of getting too close to the very sector it was set up to protect consumers from. So, what they're basically saying is the financial watchdog is basically been owned by the big finance companies. So, what good is a watchdog if the watchdog is not watching over the finances that it? Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with that. Basically, it's not protecting people. It's not protecting victims or not protecting victims, and instead is actually allowing the finances to deregulate. And we know things have been getting worse. The Conservatives have made things a lot easier for them as well. Like I said, finances and markets is not my thing, but we know that the Conservatives have been making it easier and easier for them to take bigger and bolder risks as well. But this one here, just this headline of financial watchdog is just not doing its job at all. Does this surprise me? No. Will Labour do anything about it? I don't know. Let's read into this last piece, guys. So, Britain's leading financial watchdog is facing intense criticism over its lax regulation of the financial service industry amid a new report exposing how it has been captured by the sector it is meant to oversee. The MP's back dossier, which is based on testimony from over 170 experts, scam victims, and some of the sector's own employees, including dozens of claimed and examples alienating from the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA has failed to protect consumers. The all-party parliamentary group, the APPG, on the investment fraud and fairer financial service launched its landmark publication in Parliament on Tuesday, where whistleblowers and victims of investment scams shared among alarming testimonies about the state of the financial watchdog and the lingerie of alleged failings. The report includes the tragic story of Ian Davis, a lawnmower repairman from Fife, who lost his entire life savings after investing in an FCA-approved fund, which turned out to be run by fraudsters. And Davis took his own life in 2023. That's really bad when you put all... I'm just going to put this out there. If you are somebody who is young and has money, if you invest in... If you're somebody who, like me, does invest in all sorts of shares and bonds and whatnot, do not put it all in one place. Spread your money around to protect you and protect yourself. Don't put all your money in one. Don't put it all in one basket. It's just too dangerous. It really, really is. Andy Agalero, a founder of the Transparency... I'm sorry, I can't say that surname. I apologise. Founder of the Transparency Task Force and secretary to the parliamentary group, fears this similar tragedy will happen again in the future without action from politicians. He called for black box thinking, referring to the thorough reviews of safety standards and potential engineering faults which take place after plane crashes. One critique is that the regulator is seen as bulletproof, as consumers cannot take the organisation to court, except through judicial review. And the report cites major concerns of a revolving door between the FCA and industry figures. The Financial Service Act 2021 has also demanded the FCA must carry out a public consultation about introducing a legally binding duty of care to consumers. Instead, the FCA introduces a consumer duty, which Transparency Task Force says is toothless because it does not provide consumers a so-called private right of action, and they need to take matters to the courts if they have been mistreated. He said that these issues fed into wider trust defects plaguing the financial sector, with much of the blame being laid at FCA's door. In a warning to the Labour government, which is planning deregulation of the city, he added there is a direct correlation between the growth and the need for financial sector to be trustworthy. To get the growth we need a framework that stops people being ripped off. Why would people want to invest if they know their money is going to get thrown away? Nobody's going to invest if they think their money is going to get thrown away. It's just logic. Responding to questions from Byline Times, Alago added a message to Chancellor Rachel Reeves. We understand you want economic growth. There's a right way, there's a wrong way. Deregulation is a dangerous way. Doing so while cutting away consumer protections is a recipe for disaster. Please don't do that. Journalist Ian Fraser told auditors, my perception is far too close to large banks, effectively captured, serious disrespectful of whistleblowers and obvious to the suffering of their victims. This was clear from the mishandling of the RBS Global Restructuring Group scandal. It tends to throw the little guys under the bus, as it did during the LIBOR scandal, and in numerous other instances I'm aware of, rather than hold senior people or large organisations accountable. Whistleblowers have also allegedly been treated grossly badly by the FCA, Andy Alago has said. Conservative MP Bob Blackman, the chair of the all-party group, told attendees there is something seriously wrong with the FCA in its current form. It is not possible to come to any other conclusion from the evidence. After dealing with constituents who lost out from FCA's approved financial schemes, he added, I've come away very disappointed indeed. So this is allegations of a corporate catch and revolving door between the financial industry and the FCA set out in this report here, according to this here. So they are they are working together rather than actually holding to account. Robert Denlier, a former managing director of structure produce at megabank UBS, said the FCA has over time been captured by industry and its objectives and interests is now a captured organisation. And Paul Carla, a foreign exchange trader for 28 years who has battled the FCA on several fronts, branded the regulator as a lame duck. The FCA has taken no action against firms over their handling of whistleblowers. Despite thousands of complaints, he calls for proper representation from consumers. At the moment, he's just advised by industries or worse, lawyers for firms who only represent the industry. And he expressed concerns about the regulator's alleged influence over their bodies, including the Financial Ombudsman Service, which he should be entirely independent. He's also claimed that the FCA's press office extends its dark cloak over the public's body, and those challenging its narrative see their employment end, one way or another. Victims of financial scandal shared experience at a meeting. Lisa King is a mortgage prisoner. The terms of those stuck on an incredibly expensive mortgage deal, but unable to move to another provider. Estimates of those affected vary from around 50,000 to several hundred thousand. King claims that FDA failed in those positions by failing to force banks to act. We've been robbed, she told attendees. Helen McGregor, an investment victim, added in her case, the FCA were warned and did nothing. The FCA reportedly told her that they could not deal with individual cases. Mark Garnier, MP, Shadow Economic Secretary to the Treasury, emphasised the importance of tough and effective regulation to ensure consumer confidence and support economic growth. The report findings suggest the FCA may need a complete overhaul or even a royal commission to restore trust in the financial service sector. An FCA spokesperson told the Financial Times on Monday, we sympathise with those who have lost out as a result of wrongdoing in financial service. However, we strongly reject the characterisation of the organisation. We have learned from historic issues and transformed as an organisation so we can deliver for consumers, the market and the wider economy. However, the FT, Financial Times, reports today that the financial watchdog has reworked its internal whistleblowing policy after the report criticised it for its mishandling complaints from current and former employees. So they basically tried to silence people. Labour peer Prem Sugha hit out at the FCA as complacent, confident and captured in comments from the report. Without a major overhaul, it will never deliver in the responsibilities Parliament has given it to protect consumers. Lib Dem peer Lord Fox added, As uncomfortable as it may be for the FDA's leadership team to study the evidence-based critique that has been produced, I do hope we can take the analysts and recommendations as they are intended, as helpful pointers for where reforms are needed. Some firms have been fined dozens of times for the same forms of wrongdoing in recent years, suggesting very little change in their behaviour. And there's a link there for the which if you wanted to have a look as well. And also, if you have been affected by any of the issues raised, you can contact the Charity Samaritans at any time there as well. Like I say, a link for all the articles, guys, will be in the description. But this is very concerning that those who have been victims of fraud and the financial conduct authorities have basically just sat on it, allowing it to happen, or claim that they can't do anything about it or whatever. What's the point? What is the point of them if they're not there to do a job? What is the point of them? You know, that's the key thing. If you have an industry that's supposed to be there to protect those, and it's not doing that, then it needs to reform or it needs to go. So something needs to happen. And considering you've had some cross-party references there on it, it's clearly something that's going to be talked about by MPs. I'm sure they're going to be talking about it. Whether they can pressure the government into doing something is another thing, but we will have to wait and see on that, guys. But if you want to grow the economy, you need to have trust. And if you want people to invest, people need assurances that their investment is not going to be basically thrown away. They need some assurances and guarantees on some investments. That is for sure. Like I said, I'm not a financial expert, but when you have a financial watchdog that is not even doing its job, it doesn't make you a very good idea to wanting to invest, does it? So guys, before we head out, I've got one final video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this funny video. It's a new one from Foil and Arms from them, and I have not yet watched this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one from them here on Regan's Newsround. This one is called Getting Past Chinese Immigration. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. So let's have a listen.
Before granting you entry to China, you must first answer these simple questions. What can be seen from space in China?
Your every movement.
Correct. Between gunpowder, paper, and the compass, what Chinese invention has had the greatest impact on the world?
TikTok.
Correct. In China, how many terms can our president serve?
TBC.
Correct. Why do we have to be very careful around the Chinese army?
Oh, yeah, because they're made of terracotta.
Correct. What is the most widely used website in all of China?
NordVPN.
Correct. Where are the most expensive Chinese rental properties located?
Sydney.
Correct. What is the most common form of Chinese calligraphy?
White people tattoos.
Correct. What are China's biggest exports?
Smartphones, pharmaceuticals, and MAGA hats.
Correct. How many steps are there to the planning process in China?
1. Build.
Correct. What was introduced in the 80s as an attempt to control population in China?
Bell-bottom trousers on men.
Not very sexy.
No.
Where can you see human rights abuses in China?
Nowhere. There's too much smog.
Correct. And finally, the practical.
You need just.
Oh, you want?
Yeah, of course. But that's because
I mean, do you break them?
And then
no.
Oh no! I haven't even. That could have worked.
I hadn't seen that one till now, but I gotta say, oof. TikTok, guys, the most influential thing in the world. Oh, you know, I've had noodles before. They're nice. Yeah, I've had noodles with the chopsticks as well, so they're very, very nice. If you haven't tried it, I recommend it. Very, very good stuff there. But that is Foil and Arms with their new one, Getting Past Chinese Immigration. So that's a new immigration one from them. That is for sure. They've got so many countries to cover, guys. So don't you worry. They'll get to every single country, I'm sure. Yeah, definitely a good one there, guys. So guys, what did you think about all the stories that we covered today? We covered 7 different stories from 7 different outlets. Let me know your thoughts on each story down in the comments section below, what you guys thought of them. If you've watched all the way through, I want to say a massive thank you for doing so. It's really greatly appreciated. If you watched on the premiere video, and if you've left any memberships or gifted memberships or super chats on during the live feed, the live premiership feed, thank you so much as well. Really appreciate it. But just before I go, I just have one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.